It's week 12 on the Appalachian Trail, and surprise, surprise, we are starting the week out in the rain. We are at one of the shelters just outside of Daleville and Troutville, and it rained all night and it rained all morning. The one joy of hiking in the rain out here is that when it rains on the Appalachian Trail, it brings out the red Fs. And these are one of my favorite little creatures to see, and honestly, it makes all the rainy days better.
Rainy on the Blue Ridge Parkway and foggy.
We had finally reached the point of the Appalachian Trail where we were zigzagging with the iconic Blue Ridge Parkway.
The view here at Taylor Mountain is, of Taylor Mountain is absolutely spectacular, as you can see. Just couldn't have a more perfect day to see this mountain. Beautiful.
Because I've spent a good chunk of my life along the North Carolina section of the Blue Ridge Parkway, intersecting this section of Parkway felt really special, and the Blue Ridge Parkway always feels a little bit like home. Though I will say that this first section of Parkway that we were on, it ended up being a very rainy few days, and there were some views that I did miss out on because of the weather, but in a way, the fog and the rain has a magic of all its own. Though my shoes being perpetually wet and me smelling like a drowned river rat was not magical at all. At trail days, Barbie wasn't feeling well, and I had finally surmised that he had gotten Giardia.
Look at this heathen cutting his burger with a knife and a fork. Who does that?
Somebody might have to eat the rest of it later.
His symptoms had been not so great when we were at trail days, but we were still moving afterwards. But then they came to a head a few days later, and we had to take a little bit of a break at a campground. We took a day at Middle Creek Campground so that Barbie could rest and recuperate, and it was kind of weird. He did have some hallucinations while we were staying there. But the next day, he said he felt well enough to keep hiking, so we shortened our mileage a little bit, but we kept heading down the trail. And while the beginning of the week had been full of rain, the latter half of the week was a little bit clearer, and the flowers and the views were out to show off. I was especially enamored by all the rhododendrons starting to bloom. It was so lovely to see them all with the mountains in the background.
Crossing the guillotine.
We were back to weaving along the Blue Ridge Parkway, and these were some of my favorite views of the week.
Good morning, Blue Ridge Parkway. I don't know what this little overlook is called, but it was a nice little surprise.
I still don't think I'll ever get tired of starting my day with these views.
It's Petite's Gap Road. It's my road, because I'm petite.
The days were getting warmer and longer, and I was finding joy in the silliest of things, like roads named Petite's Gap Road. There were some days where Virginia would feel hot and long, and you could somewhat feel the monotony of being in the same state for over 500 miles. But I also knew embracing it made me stronger.
Do you spot the thing that is not supposed to be in the woods? Well, it is supposed to be in the woods, but it's not a root. Can you spot it? There's a danger noodle. They scare the shit out of me.
Shortly after our snake sighting, it was time to go into Glasgow, Virginia. I actually was going to jump off this bridge with some friends, but it was really high for me and just seemed sketchy, so I didn't.
Thought about jumping off that today, but chickened out. Because it just seemed sketchy the way the bars were. Otherwise, height-wise, I would have.
We didn't plan on staying in Glasgow the night before, but as we were leaving town, a few of our friends drove right up and were dropped off by a shuttle. So we ended up staying in the in-town free shelter, and then the next morning we got up very early in time to see the train go through the tracks, and then we got back on the trail and waved goodbye to Glasgow, Virginia. I will say, although there was not much in Glasgow, Virginia, besides a Dollar General and a pizza place, the pizza place in Glasgow was delicious, and the people that worked there could not have been nicer. So when you hike through there, I highly recommend that spot. The walk out of Glasgow was absolutely beautiful. We were walking through this little area of the woods right next to a river, and it was just absolutely stunning, all the greenery and the water flowing down below. It was one of those days that made me think about just how much there is to explore in the world, and how many trails there are to walk down, and how many things there are to see, and how there's not quite enough time to see all that this world has to offer, but that I sure was trying by walking the East Coast and the Appalachian Trail.
A absolutely beautiful walk.
Good morning. I'm not very good at doing these face videos anymore. I think I just forget about them. But we left Glasgow this morning. We stayed in the free shelter that they have for hikers behind Scotto's. Scotto's had awesome pizza. Elijah was awesome. And yeah, we met up with a bunch of friends there, and that was awesome. And this morning we are headed out, and we are making our way to Waynesboro. I'm not feeling so great this morning. I think it was our shuttle driver. He took the curves really fast, and I'm feeling nauseous. But yeah, but it's not too hot, and this little piece of trail is beautiful. So on our way to Waynesboro. It'll be a few days, but slowly making our way there.
Okay. Yeah, this close one.
We were down there this morning. It's hot today, but it's pretty at least. It's not raining.
I know I said earlier that because of the heat that sometimes Virginia felt monotonous, but these view took those thoughts right out of my head.
That was some brutal climbs this morning. The view's almost worth it.
I can't remember what this peak was called, but I do remember an old schoolhouse used to sit here, and I was afraid a snake was going to come out.
800.
We were hitting a new mile marker about once a week now, and it just felt like the trail was moving so fast. I knew at this point that we needed to move faster to make it, but it just felt like it was going so fast. So I was soaking in every single moment, like finally getting to walk across a suspension bridge without rain, because this was definitely a joyful moment.
Bluff Mountain. That was brutal. But this breeze is a sweet, sweet reward.
A lot of people, when I first started talking about that I was going to do the Appalachian Trail, ask me why the AT first, why not one of the other trails? And it's simply because of these Blue Ridge Mountains right here. These Blue Ridge Mountains have been home for a while, and I just can't get enough of them. And I felt it unfair to walk any other trail before I walked the one that I called home. I loved it when we walked through fields like this and you could hear all the birds chirping in the background. I'm going to be quiet for a second so you can just listen to the birds. A little later that day, we stumbled upon Bougie's Trail Magic, which we were always so amazed and so grateful by the kindness of strangers for giving magic to people they don't even know. It really shows the magic of this community. We just passed the Blue Blaze for Spy Rock. Normally I'm all about the Blue Blazes, but it's too foggy today. I don't think I'm gonna see shit. The forest is just so foggy. So we're hiking on, and Barbie's trying to get out of the video. I'm not sure why I loved videoing these suspension bridges so much, but I'm pretty sure as long as it wasn't raining, I videoed every single one. Or it could have been because the first one we crossed, it was pouring down rain. But I just think that there's so much fun, and there's such a fun way to cross a river instead of, having to ford it. To wrap up week 12, we stopped at the Harper Creek shelter, which was right before the Three Ridges climb. And honestly, this is one of my favorite shelters we've stayed at thus far. Not the shelter itself, but the location was just absolutely stunning.
Harper Creek Shelter. This is one of the prettiest spots we've camped. There are so many tent sites. And the creek is right down there. This is a beautiful spot.
It was one of those spots that we wrote down in our notes in the hopes that we'd come back one day, and it was the perfect way to end week 12 on the AT.